What we saw in Russia in the beginning of 2000s, Putin did that his first 4 or 5 years. What Trump managed to do within 7 weeks. Because, you can spread fear very quickly. And fear and terror and anxiety and feeling of hopelessness. I think that's probably the main ingredient. When you feel this helplessness and hopelessness, probably your president will try to amend the constitution as our president did. But people and journalists have to stand up for their rights and for their freedom. My name is Pavel Kanygin. I'm an exile journalist from Russia, now based in Amsterdam, Poland. I do video podcast on YouTube in the form of video explainers, and where we explain things and elaborate on different and complex topics about Russia and what Russia has become recently because of invasion of Ukraine. When we escaped Russia in 2022, we had a small project, media startup, affiliated with Novaya Gazeta. But after 1 month, when the war broke out, the Novaya Gazeta was shut down temporarily, but this state is ongoing. Novaya Gazeta is still kind of temporarily closed. But back then, Dmitry Muratov and I decided that we split these activities, and I took this video podcast, and started just developing it on my own. We call it «Продолжение следует», which is to be continued.
Продолжение следует.
Продолжение следует.
И тогда продолжение следует.
It was just audio reports, analytical anchors. But soon after the war, we started kind of making video dimension. So we added video to that podcast, to that audio. And now our channel has more than 1.2 million subscribers. So the key to this success probably was because our Novaya Gazeta background first, but probably most important was that we began to speak out about what was really going on between Russia and Ukraine, between Russia and the West, in a very audacious and probably a daring way towards the Kremlin and Russian authorities. And of course we were pretty safe because we fled Russia, right? But at that point, there were no Novaya Gazeta, or no of Moscow, no TV Rain in active stage. So they all kind of shut down their activities. And only kind of us and a couple of other media just were left in that field, in that realm. And that's how we gained this success, gained this popularity. We filled the gap that happened when the major players were gone. But of course, another reason is that we were professional and still are professional journalists. And we employed that professionalism in that YouTube realm and arena. And that was pretty new, because before that, YouTube was the kind of arena where only bloggers present, right? And we brought a little bit of professionalism there. And I think that was exactly what people needed at that time. And another thing is that the language that we employed was very kind of appealing to the Russian youth, and people under 40, under 45. That is the demographic that we were hoping to, and still hope to aim. This is our core audience. But of course, not only them. So we are happy if the elders subscribe to our channel, but our core audience is those people. And the language was very accessible, but also topics, also probably my background, that I was the person of credibility. People know who I was, and they expected some kind of quality from me. Fact-based journalism. I used to be a war correspondent and senior investigative correspondent, and shortly before the war I was an executive producer for Novaya Gazeta. Field reporting was my thing. I had never done all these analytical things, analytical columns and anchors before the war. I was always kind of behind the camera. I talked to people, I gathered information, so I talked to my sources, and that was a very interesting job. But when we fled Russia, it became kind of obvious that we were cut off all our kind of previous and known ways to communicate with our sources. People are very afraid to talk to foreign people, even if they're Russian, but they're already foreign. And now I bear this label of foreign agent. So, and this is immediately a no-go for almost everyone in Russia. Even who are friendly, they don't want to put themselves in danger, and me neither. I don't want to jeopardize their safety. So that's why I'm very cautious to speak to people in Russia and to disclose their personal information. So that's why, of course, we have some staff members who are still in Russia, but we can keep it a secret. When they talk to our sources, we do a lot of kind of bells and whistles, so that no one would ever know. To protect them. That's the difficulty of our current job. But back then it was very easy. The world changed dramatically since 2022. So it's it's two complete different universes. And I can't even imagine how people who remain in Russia, how they manage to proceed with their work now. So now I'm a talking head. It's a pity that I admit that openly, but I don't see any reasons why I should hide it. Yeah, I'm a talking head. I cannot define what journalism is like now. For me, everything changed so badly that I can't see now the difference between traditional media and new digital media, between politicians and journalists. Everything is so mixed. But if we have a classy kind of traditional notion of journalism, I should say that I have nothing to do with that anymore. But it's not that I'm sad about it or angry at myself. No, it's just a different way of doing things, a different life. But real kind of classy traditional journalism is not possible now in Russia. And the only way to send messages, to talk to people, to build some connection and bridges between us and them, between us who are in exile and Russians who are still there, is this, talking, explaining, and building this connection, keeping this connection, even by talking, even by being a talking head. And I'm happy that I can do that. But I'm less of a journalist now. I'm less of a journalist. But that's okay. I'm happy to be some kind of a professional blogger with journalism background. I think that I can do many things now that I couldn't do previously. I can express myself, I can express my personal view, my personal opinion, and I can share it with my audience. And I don't need to hide it under my kind of journalism neutrality. I'm your friend. I could be your friend in front of the camera. I can speak to you. If you like what I say, let's be friends. If you don't like, okay then. You have many other people who you might like, who you might subscribe to. At Novaya Gazeta, I was deprived of that freedom. And it's not that I didn't like it, but it constrained me a lot. Oh, I would have started building my own things, my own startup way earlier. I wouldn't have waited. till the war. But of course, we couldn't see these things, happen. We couldn't anticipate them. But still, if I had known that, I would have done many things differently. I think you have a very long way ahead. The US is not Russia, and you have a pretty strong institutions and like a checks and balances that are not so easily destroyed. But given the speed and the kind of momentum that Trump has gained recently, that might be done probably like within a short period of time. But still, I think it's months, like maybe years. It is very surprising because what we saw in Russia in the beginning of 2000s, Putin did that, within like probably his first 4 or 5 years. What Trump managed to do, within 7 weeks. Because, you can spread fear very quickly. And fear and terror and anxiety and feeling of hopelessness. I think that's probably the main ingredient when you feel this helplessness and hopelessness. I don't know whether you should like wait out all these beautiful 3.5 years. Probably yes. Probably your president, will try to amend the constitution, as our president did. But people and journalists have to stand up for their rights and for their freedom, and they should defend themselves, and they should talk to people. They should talk to their audience and explain them that it's not only us. Because we did the same mistakes. The previous generation of journalists did the same mistake in the 2000s when they didn't succeed explaining to the audience that it's not about just journalists, it's about you as audience as well. And if you don't want to stand up for us, so then we all gonna lose. That's why they eventually lost. That was happening slowly, in a very slow pace, because the Kremlin was just buying and biting a little piece at a time. There is one thing that really can bring some optimism to our conversation, is that the speed and pace of this change is so fascinating that it entails some state of a shock. And when people are shocked, they are more eager to take actions when they have this shock. We didn't have this kind of shock in 2000s. We have this slow boiling that back then. That was the reason why we reconciled so easily with our helplessness. But when it's this fast, people would start to take actions. And I think that is exactly what might be happening in the US. I'm trying not to think too far ahead. And I'm focused primarily on very kind of short-term distance. 1 month, probably 3 months. That's all what I have, and that's what I say to my team, that, hi guys, we have money and we have resources just for this period of time, and we don't know what might change, after that. So let's just get focused and let's do our job. Let's get our job done, and if it's done beautifully, nicely, and professionally, we will be able to earn some money and to make ends meet. And that is another thing that we are grappling with. I mean, it's like our physical and financial survival. We have to be better, faster, and more professional. Not even to try to see things, way ahead, because it might kill you. It might destroy your confidence, your enthusiasm, and your strength. Because at the end of the day, probably we all gonna die. The doom scenario is still at place. The Third World War, the nuke war, is very, very, very real. And if you talk to smart, clever people like the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, you will be very depressed. I would not recommend to try to predict things that far. I wanted my daughter to go back to Russia and to see the beauty of this country, and to try to fall in love with this country, because she has never seen it. She was very small when we left. That's the first thing. I would like to try again to build like my happy life in Russia. I would like to try to create something there, not to be an employee of a smart and talented newspaper.